Welcome to the Max Impact Theory podcast. I am your host, Tim Rosanelli, here with my producer, Justin Alvieri.
Hello.
All right, let's get right to it today, guys. I have an interesting story. My wife and I, we were at a financial class, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. If anybody's interested in getting some information about finance, I have to say that that's probably one of the best ones you can go to. And we were doing kind of a roundtable discussion, and this was about, household expenses. And there was a couple there, and this will get us into our subject. There was a couple there, and the husband was complaining that they were spending way too much money on food. And here they were spending $500 a week on food for 4 people. And the reason why was that his wife was buying all organic food.
That's a lot of money.
So as
that's a week, right? So
yeah.
say you get paid bi-weekly, that's $1,000 a paycheck.
So she's going to Whole Food, or maybe you can call it whole paycheck.
Yeah.
And
realistically
and
half paycheck, but
Yeah. And so she was really into this organic food, and I came up with the question, and I've seen this before in my head, is how organic is organic really, and is it worth it spending that much money on organic food? So that's where the premise of this podcast came from. First off, is $500. I mean, that is a lot of money in food for 4 people, even with kids.
Me and my brother used to eat my parents at a house and home, and we never spent that much on groceries.
Yeah,
me and my brother could eat a whole pizza by ourselves. So if we got a pizza, it'd be 3 pizzas, one for me, one for my brother, and one for my parents.
Yeah. and this is groceries, not even dining out.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. So let's save you some money by going over some things about organic. Now, there's 3 reasons why people go organic, first off. And the first reason is for health reasons. Okay, the second reason is environmental reasons, like they want to save the environment.
That's if you know a little more about organic things, because obviously the first thing everybody thinks, it's healthier, so I'm gonna eat it.
Yeah, and
then you have the subgroup of people that are
that's what I was gonna say.
Environmental.
Yeah, the subgroup of environmental, like people are saying you're not being environmental enough about it. And we're like, what? I didn't even think of environmental. And then the third thing is, I just put it as pesticides. So maybe we could say that's part of healthier, but I want to kind of address that one separately.
Less pesticides and stuff.
Yeah, less pesticides.
So that's kind of
food.
in both realms.
Yeah, so
healthier and environmentally friendly.
Yeah, so I guess when I'm saying healthy, I'm saying more nutritional value of the food.
Yeah.
And then maybe pesticides would be the healthier. I don't know.
Less health risk or something.
Yeah, less health risk. So let's go into 3 things, and this is a lot of things that I've discovered about organic. First off is when we're talking about healthier, more nutritious, they've done research on a couple occasions on this and tested food that was considered organic and then food that was not organic.
And they found out that the organic's so much healthier for you, right?
No, they found out basically there's no difference.
Oh.
In nutritional value. They found out that maybe the organic in one of the studies had a little bit more antioxidants, but they don't believe that the level was high enough to have an influence on your health over just eating the other.
I also heard that doctors don't actually know what antioxidants do for your body. They just know that your body makes it.
Yeah.
And so intaking it is probably healthy for you, but they don't know why.
But they don't know why and how much. And so there's kind of a question mark with, it being a little bit more nutritious. And so they have slightly higher. Oh, the other part about healthy too is they go into GMOs. And I don't know if part of the discussion with GMOs has to do with the environmental impact.
And it stands for genetically modified organism.
Yeah. So now there's 2 ways you could think of GMOs, and we were just talking about this. Is one type of GMO is the type where it's really resistant to pesticides, so they can pile pesticides on the plant.
Or it handles late frosts.
Yeah, so it could be a better
quality.
Because
I know there's a genetically modified tomato out there, and basically they
They
genetically
can grow it in
modified
Alaska,
it.
right?
They genetically modified it so that it's more frost resistant.
Yeah.
Because everyone, like, sometimes you plant your tomatoes and they start growing, and then a frost comes and it kills all the plants, or it'll make your yield a lot less.
Imagine if you were up in Alaska and you couldn't even grow tomatoes. I mean, oh man,
Yeah.
that would be terrible.
And
I can't imagine
that's why I doubt there's many Italians up in Alaska.
They can grow a really big cabbage though. That's where all the big cabbage,
Yeah, that's true.
Like a 20 or 50-pound cabbage.
Yeah.
So GMOs is another thing that people are concerned about. But I think that you can kind of put them into two categories. One maybe is where it's modified, but you're still getting a good product, and it wouldn't have much effect on your health. Now, we'll talk about the pesticides one in a little bit. So that's the other thing that people are concerned with. Now, from an environmental perspective, people always go, oh, well, it's more environmentally healthy to grow organically. And I don't know if that's generally true, because you have a few different things that would go against that. First off, organic usually takes a little bit less energy to produce the food. But on the other hand, it takes a lot more land than I think they said 85% more land to produce the same yield. So that means it takes a lot more land in order to produce organic food, which is an environmental cost because you have to cut down more trees.
It's less income per acre.
Yeah, less income per acre, which means you have to have a lot more area. In fact, they said if the whole world went organic with that amount of additional land mass, that we would not be able to feed the whole world if we were all eating organically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the next thing is people, but the people, they always go with that, but they don't realize that the biggest cost of food is actually the transportation cost. So regardless of, where, if you're eating organic food, the main, if you're looking at carbon emissions and things like that, most of that carbon emissions would come in transporting the item. So if you have a banana that comes all the way from, South America or something, that shipping that all the way up here is going to cost just as much carbon as, shipping a non-organic banana or something like that. So there's a lot of, there's a transportation cost that is involved. The other thing you have to consider is the energy cost, because a lot of people talk about organic farms, and if you look at an organic farm, a lot of them are done like, have you ever seen microgreens where they actually are growing inside with huge lights, and you see a lot of these organic farms in cities where they're actually in a warehouse with tons of lights on the plants. So when you're thinking about energy costs, if you're planting non-organic outside, you're just using the sunlight. You're not using as much energy.
Yeah.
As the regular organic.
Urban farming.
Like the urban farming movement. Yeah, yeah. So they're doing the urban farming to be organic and maybe more environmentally friendly, but at the same time, they're not being environmentally friendly because they're using more lights and things like that.
Yeah.
Which, increases your energy cost. And then the last thing I think is the pesticides. So a lot of people worry about, pesticides being on their food. And there's a few things about this. First off is they've tested organic food versus non-organic food and found that both had residuals of pesticides. And you also have to remember that organic doesn't mean no pesticides. See, that's one thing that people usually, it's kind of a myth. They think that because it's organic, it has no pesticides. No, the pesticides are all organic pesticides or naturally produced pesticides that could have just as big or bigger environmental impact and health impact on you as the pesticides that are used for non-organic. So,
organic or genetically modified.
Yeah. So, and when they did testing of organic versus non-organic food, they still find the same amount of residual pesticides on the food items.
Yeah.
So you can't really use that argument as well. They said the main thing that will help with pesticide intake is basically just washing your food. So if you wash your food, you're pretty good. Another thing is if you're really worried about it, it's more likely to get pesticides from leafy vegetables, ones that are above the ground, than root vegetables. So if you're trying to save some money on that budget, instead of buying the organic carrots, you're probably not going to have too much of a difference between the organic and the
carrots, potatoes,
beets,
stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. But lettuce, you might want to go organic on the lettuce if you're really worried about the pesticides.
Lettuce, corn, probably.
Yeah, corn. Well, corn. Your tomatoes, things like that. Anything that's above the ground, especially if you're eating it. Like lettuce, you're eating and it's directly on the ground. Tomatoes are directly. Now, corn. It does have a husk, so you do have a little bit of a barrier. But I guess it didn't say specifically corn whether that's good or bad. But if you're really worried about it, I would take the organic of the corn over, the potatoes. Maybe you could just have the regular potatoes.
Yeah. And
so those are the three categories that we usually, people are usually worried about. So I would say, looking at all the evidence that they had, that maybe the cost of the organic food might not be worth it.
Yeah.
There's a few other things too.
Because people's normal reasons for going organic are basically misinformed.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to give you some solutions to this that are going to make a lot of sense, but in a second. There's also two things that I was thinking about with organic that organic doesn't allow. The first thing is sewage sludge. Okay, so when you have sewage, they get all the water out of it, and it becomes almost like a sludge that's like almost fertilizer looking, and a lot of it is used.
Fertilizer looking?
Well, yeah, it's like,
or is it fertilizer?
It's fertilizer, it looks like what you buy in the store.
Is this what you're telling? Are you trying to tell me something, Tim?
And you can, it can be composted or whatever, but a lot of it is used in the farming industry as organic material, which is a great, sustainable way to get rid of a lot of.
Talk about human or non-human?
It could be either, but they're talking about mainly human. Yes, human.
All right.
So you
got organic junkies out there with your human excrements, fueled food.
Well, you can't use that for organic. So
you can't.
Yeah, you can't use it.
Right.
Which
so if you don't want feces grown.
Yeah. Well, you would go organic.
I mean, organic, they probably use animal feces instead. But the problem with human versus animal is humans eat so much junk and so many chemicals that feces are toxic.
Well, we have
and animals don't.
Well, these I'm sure. I don't know. I'm shooting off the hip here, but I'm sure they have to have some kind of testing before they start using them for.
Yeah, we all know how testing helps other situations.
But that's one thing that's not, and
it's safe enough. Nobody's gonna get sick from it,
But the other one that really concerns me with organic is that this is actually a sterilization process called food irradiation, whereas when they actually take food and they expose it to ultraviolet lights that kill most of the bacteria and things like that. So when you hear on the news, and it's a big problem because you can't use it in organic, so what happens is most of the food poisoning cases that you hear on the news, when you hear like they say, oh, there was an E. coli outbreak in lettuce and they have to get rid of all this lettuce, it's because it wasn't sterilized using this method. So, and most of the food poisoning cases that happen are with organic food. So we're eating organic food because we think it's healthier, more environmentally friendly, but maybe it's not as safe as some of the food. I don't know who made these standards because that doesn't seem like something that is inorganic, I don't know. It seems like that should be something they should waive if it's going to help safety. But it is something to consider if you are buying organic, that it's
Because I don't see why that makes it inorganic.
Yeah, I don't either.
You're just shining ultraviolet light on it.
Yeah, maybe they think it's going to have some kind of radiation in there. Or I don't know. I would have to look.
Ultraviolet isn't radioactive, though.
I know.
You get ultraviolet rays from the sun.
Yeah, but maybe
that's
people,
what gives you wrinkles.
Do they think? Yeah, do
ultraviolet
they think
rays from the sun give you wrinkles?
Are they afraid they're going to get skin cancer from eating their lettuce?
They're afraid the tomatoes are going to give you wrinkles faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's and some of the stuff seems like it could be considered organic. So I guess there's a little bit of a judgment from people.
Well, not all organic stamps are created equal.
No, because they could come from other countries and stuff, right?
Well, because there's different associations. So you have like the USDA, which is the
government.
most common. Yeah, it's the government. It's the most common one that you see. But there's other types. The USDA has a 70% organic.
So it only has to be
rule where it only has to be 70% organic. So, but that's not for like fruits and vegetables. It's more for like organic, like granola bars.
Yeah.
Like, you have a granola bar that says USDA organic.
Yeah.
Now the reason they say that it only has to be 70% is because manufacturers complain that they can't get all of their ingredients organically.
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, well, we'll make it 70%. So if you really want an organic product, like you're probably eating organic granola bars that only 70% of the ingredients are organic.
Well, that's because
now we know that there's not a real big difference, but
anything processed is considered not organic. So, if you have processed sugar,
but
processed
it'll
wheat,
be like made with organic materials.
Well, that's why they said this. They make the 70% standard. So, even that means, we're not as organic as we think the food is.
Yeah,
so
there's some really strict ones out there, and there's some really and USDA is probably the most lenient one. But the strict ones are definitely probably wrinkle waves on your tomatoes.
So in the final analysis, I'll ask you the question straight out. Do you think organic's worth it? Are you going organic because of this? Were you organic? You weren't organic, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not. I wouldn't. I mean, if somebody puts an organic tomato in front of me, I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever.
But to go
even
out
though
to
I got a
one.
chance of bacterial infections in my stomach.
Yeah,
salmonella.
I've never
E. coli
reached out and said I'm going to purchase all my food organic. I have had.
We usually go off of what the cheapest produce is.
Yeah.
Because I remember I went to this was a couple weeks ago. My wife's like, go pick some tomatoes up, and so there was tomatoes on one end and the other end, and I picked the wrong end apparently because they were hydroponic tomatoes that were like 3 times the amount of the other tomatoes.
Now I did organic.
So they're like organic
meat.
hydroponic. I don't know why because when I was in college, I was a part of a team that actually invented a hydroponic system that could easily be built with cheap materials in third world countries, and so we were like distributing them when we went to other countries. But so as a part of that, and hydroponics literally just means you make it in water.
Ask you something about that. Okay, so they're taking these things to Africa or whatever because that's where you went, right?
I went to Africa,
and they're figuring out a cheap hydroponic system. Why didn't they just teach the people how to use a regular farm?
Well, the problem is like in the drought-stricken areas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or the places where the soil isn't good for growing things.
Yeah. Because
so it's supposed to be things like that.
Well,
and it's
the reason why I bring this up.
It was more like a village, almost like a communal vegetable garden kind of thing. But it was with the whole so you do the fish pond and then the excrement from the fish fertilize the plants and then all that. So it was kind of like you get your fish and your the idea was to make a communal thing that everybody puts in and everybody gets out to make sure everybody's getting
and I get
complete
that totally.
nutrients, because the way that some of the places have very poor soil for growing.
I get that
they don't
totally,
get all their
but
nutrients and stuff.
My thing is when I hear like people from America trying to help people in other countries, we always come up with these first world solutions for third world countries. Like I just watched that Bill Gates special, and they were talking about the sewage problem in there, where they just dump sewage basically into the rivers. So Bill Gates and his team made this really awesome plant that handled sewage, and it worked off of sun and and things like that. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's a first world solution for a third world country. Who's going to maintain that? Because probably you wouldn't have anybody that's going to be paid to fix that.
Yeah.
And you have all this stuff, you can't repeat it real easily.
Well, this wasn't that elaborate.
Yeah.
This
well,
was
no,
this
I
was
understand.
Fish and plants.
I understand, but like hydroponics not as complicated, but it still is kind of like a first world solution, because now you have to figure out where you're going to get the electric for it. And some of these places don't even have electric for themselves.
This didn't use electric. This used gravity fed.
Okay.
To push up and back.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like it didn't have any kind of a pump at all in it, because you would think that you'd have to have something pump it uphill.
No, it didn't have a pump.
Okay.
I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't smart enough.
oh, okay.
I was a part of building things for it, like structures to put the plants in and run the lines.
A lot of
but
these,
I know that that was the goal, was seeing if we could come up with a pumpless.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't pumpless, make it so much so that it was whatchamacallit.
It's just when I these kind of things, it's funny when I hear all these things about like our solutions for stuff, is that a lot of these countries are not where we were back in the 1600s. They're like some of these third world countries, and we have made solutions simple solutions all through the years for all these things, and we're, instead of trying to teach them, we're trying to skip them from where they're at now to where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And that gap is huge. That gap is huge, and there's no way that they could possibly be successful. You have to kind of. I think you should take these third world countries, and we're getting way off the subject. You have to teach the third world countries the methods that we had. That's one step above what they're at now, and then one more step, and then one more step. And that's why a lot of these things never work, because we go to third world countries and try to give them our solutions, but they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the people that know how to fix these things, and they don't know how to operate them right. They don't have any money to pay to people to do it. So how are you ever going to get from here to there? Well, it's basically you have to teach them methods that takes their own labor to be able to do it.
Well, to this day, the program is still going strong.
Yeah.
Because it was, an educational and.
Oh yeah. And I totally
and
understand that.
where they're at, they're not in the boonies equivalent of Africa, where it's like it wasn't the plains, it was more like the cities that we were doing it in. So
and I'm not saying that people aren't well intentioned. And I'm just saying that it's the. These you're talking about really poor people that only have, we're like $1 to them is a lot, and we're creating solutions that might cost them $5. And it's something that a lot of people don't think about when they make these kind of solutions and everything. But we're getting way off topic now.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree with certain things.
Yeah,
like what we were doing helped, but I see what you're saying with like making it too technical, or when there's not an infrastructure to supply
the input you need
needs for it. Yeah.
So, well, to finish up about the organics. So I basically, if you really want to eat organic, I have 3 basic solutions to do it. And this is going to also help a lot of the some of the issues that you also have. And my first thing is something that I'm really passionate about, and that's grow your own vegetable garden. Because when you grow your own vegetable garden, it only is it right there, so there's not very many inputs into it where you're using gas and transportation costs and extra energy. But when you have a garden at home, you're actually you know the inputs. In other words, you're not going to use pesticides or how much you're going to use. And the second solution to that is to eat seasonably. So one of the things is you can eat as organic as you want, but if you eat out of season, that food has to come from really far away to get onto your table, which means that it's using tons of transportation costs to get there.
Yeah.
And my third solution is simply eat locally if you can. So if you can eat locally, talk to the farmer and find out what they're using. See if they might not have the stamp of organic, but they might be farming organically. And if you get it from a local farmer, same thing. You don't have the transportation costs. You're getting healthier food. You can verify what type of pesticides they're using, if they are using any. If you don't like GMOs, then you probably can get food from them does not have any GMOs. So that's my 3 solutions to kind of eating organic, even if you're not technically stamped or rubber stamped organic. So that kind of brings us to our next section.
Hey guys, so that's the end of this part of our series. This is going to be a 3-episode series. So make sure you guys tune in next week. Don't forget that you guys can contact us by email at thetheory@maximpactkarate. And we'll see you guys next week for the second part.